Morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the first weekly press conference of the 2025 Florida State baseball season. We will get started with questions for head coach Link Jarrett.
Link, this is the second time since you've been here that you guys are starting with James Madison, and third time in the last 4 years. And they were a tournament team last year. Just what do you remember about them from playing them 2 years ago, and what do you see in them and looking at them this year?
Yeah, Brett, they're always tough. I've known Marlon Eikenberry, their head coach, for decades, and they do a great job. And in this environment, as the roster changes, you see consistency in what they do. You look at last year's team; they were extremely versatile, quality team. They return about half of the innings on the mound from last year's team. So you have a variety. They have some very good secondary pitches. They have some effective lefties, a really good left-handed reliever. And then, I think similar to us, you lose some octane offensively. They lost some very good offensive players, very different. They ran the bases. They stole over 100 bases. They bunt. They have some guys that handle the bat very well. You have lefties, righties. You have an effective switch hitter in there. So they're complete. Now, year to year, I think it's hard to compare other than the quality and the ability to adapt. Ike does a great job of adapting what their personnel can do with how they need to play to put themselves in a position to win. And they were close to winning that regional. I think they might have gotten walked off in game one against South Carolina of that regional, and then came back to make it all the way through that thing and play for the regional title. They're very talented. They know what they're doing. They're not, as you stated, they're not going to be surprised by what they see when they walk in here. They've been here, and it's a great trip. It's close enough where they can make it down. We know it's a well-run program, good people, very good team, and I just hope we can go out and execute and perform. They're very, very good.
Link, I know you weren't lacking in options to start in the weekend rotation. I guess how did that you knew you had obviously Jamie on Friday. How did that break down behind Jamie, and what about the guys who separated themselves really put them apart?
Consistency. Bellini had been one of our most consistent by any metric that we have. He had been very consistent, and that goes back to we start measuring these and evaluating the first workout of the fall. And he had been very consistent. And he's physical, and he was able to navigate and lengthen out comfortably some of his outings. I'm not saying all of these have been wipeout, like A-plus performances. I can't say the same with Arnold either. Like, these guys have to navigate a little bit, and hopefully that tells you that maybe our offense can surprise some people. I know we lost some serious horsepower there, but he had been very consistent. And then as you watch and try to grow with Mendez and look at the potential, you hope that he can settle into a starting capacity. And again, physical, the package of secondary pitches is very unique. And I haven't seen somebody with that kind of secondary offering across the board with the variety and the level of stuff that he has. So it just played out that way. And when you have three guys, Coach Miguel Menendez at Jesuit, you have to tip your hat. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen in my time three pitchers from the same high school that all got here in different ways, but have made it into the opening weekend as our starting three. They're all very different. They're all left-handed. Okay, so let's take the obvious out. They're just very different. And I don't have a great concern with the fact that they're all left-handed. We do need some of the other lefties, Connor Holtz, and how we use Lauk and how we use Rowan. And some of those guys have been built up to start. Clearly out of the gate, we've named the three starters, but with the left-handed side of things that we have, and Marlowe and some of the other guys, I feel like there's still enough, if we have matchups throughout the course of a game or a weekend, that we do have some lefties still on reserve that are capable. So they all landed in different ways on the weekend rotation for us, but showed throughout the long haul that they were capable of maybe lengthening out some of those outings, which is ideally what you want out of your starting arms.
Coach, on the other side, you mentioned a couple weeks ago that you needed the right-handed pitching to kind of come along. How have you seen that group evolve in the last couple of weeks, specifically with guys like Kinnear, Crest, Abraham? Could they be some midweek op well?
Yeah, we're not looking past the weekend yet. We just want to navigate the weekend. It's a lot. You're playing 27 innings for the first time, and it is a lot. Now, I know when you're scrimmaging, both sides of this are occupied by your own team, but when you start to lengthen these out in the repetitive 9 inning intense games, it's different. So we're not looking to the Tuesday stuff yet. So let's just make sure we have all of the horses in the starting gate, and we'll try to figure out how to run the race. But I think there has been some progress. I think Johnny Abraham, his last outing was as good as I've ever seen him throw in our program. Every pitch was in play. His fastball had some good life. His cutter was good. His breaking ball was back to what we're accustomed to, and his changeup has continued to improve. Kinnear, Crest, Micah works with them diligently to try to fine tune their stuff. And clearly the stuff is really good. It's the execution of the stuff and the consistency of the stuff. I think from the right side, that's what we're looking for is, are we getting repetitive, consistent outings and pitches? And can Micah sequence based on consistency? If you're not locating and throwing the pitches where they need to be, it's really hard to go out there and pitch. Like you have to navigate and execute your stuff. I think Peyton Prescott is going to be a pleasant surprise for us. The velocity, it's 96, 97. I think there's probably more in the tank. I think Ben Barrett has been up to 97. We've seen Benny Barrett. I don't know that we've seen Ben Barrett function as loud as it has been in his outings. And again, now we go to the consistency. Can we repeat it? Can we execute it? Can Joe Charles be the Joe Charles that we know is it's in there. It's in that uni. We've seen absolute wipeout stuff out of Joe Charles. Then we've seen some inconsistencies. So whether it's left-handed or right-handed, when these guys come into these leverage moments, is the stuff executed? Is it consistent? Are we showing game management traits and a little bit of control of the running game and navigation of situations and control of the tempo? That's what remains to be seen. But I have liked the progress. And again, Johnny Abraham and Benny Barrett and Prescott and Kinnear and Nick Graney, there have been some guys that have really shown us flashes. Now, when the other dugout's full and the popcorn's in the machine down there, we have to see what that looks like.
Like, just how impressive, and you named Alex as one of your captains along with Jamie. Just how impressed have you been with his entire workload since then, the last season with the Cape and then the fall and preseason that he's had with you guys?
Yeah, it's a lot. These guys come in and a lot of our transfers had significant playing time if you rewind this tape. But I think the intensity and the expectations and the grind of this, and you get into the postseason and you get into Omaha and the focus and the microscope that's on the guys, like it does add a layer. And some of the new guys will have to understand what that's like and how to manage it. And then you go off and play summer ball, and that is difficult. And then you come back here and you go through another fall. You like to see the traction and the knowledge and the learning and the growth out of all of the players. And I think Alex Lodis is at the front of that. If you just watch the skills and the performance and we talk a lot about the understanding of self and how you need to play the game within your skill set. And I think he's learning that, and it's fun to watch. And it's refreshing to have some familiar faces in the program that have been there. You're taking information beyond surface layer stuff when players are so new and there's so many new ones. You want to get all of your tactics into the arsenal for them, but it can be hard. So now you see some guys that have been in the program 2 or 3 years. It's really nice. Now that doesn't mean that's going to be flawless, but it is refreshing to have some of the guys that you look on the field and they understand all the signs and the base running stuff and how to the defense and all of our verbiage and all of our systematic tendencies, they have it. And you hope that all of the work they do starts to show up and you see improvement from what they look like a year and a half ago to what they look like right now.
Coach, health wise, where is the squad heading into opening day tomorrow?
I think we're in pretty good shape. You undoubtedly have guys that get banged up, and I'm not comfortable saying we're 100%. I mean, we're not. I mean, we've got some guys down and some guys banged up that are trying to get back. And I think if you ask any coach, that's probably where we are and where they are. You lengthen out those scrimmages, and you really, by rule, can only practice 4 hours a day. So you max it out. But you look in that dugout at the end of some of those 4 hours, and those guys they're gassed, and it's hard. And tomorrow will be hard, and Saturday and Sunday, this will be hard. So you're going to have guys banged up. And, I'll meet with our training staff to see exactly where some of the guys that are banged up are. Bladen Playton's going to be out for a while. We know that. And then there's other guys that are banged up. And you know what? We'll probably come out of this weekend and there'll be some other guys that are banged up. So how often are you 100% full strength? It's rare. And you can take any phase of the game. You're starting pitching, look at the discussion we had a year ago when you roll into this, and here are your starting pitchers, and here's what it looks like with your leverage guys. And then by the end of the season, it looks a lot different. And you hope that's not the case, but the ebbs and flows of this and the capacity, the workload that's going to increase, there's going to be changes, and it's just part of the game. And when you have roster depth and athleticism, you hope that you can absorb some of these things that certainly come your way.
Coach, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but in the transfer portal era, especially early in the season, how difficult is it to scout opposing teams, come up with the game plan, and give your guys all the tools that they need to go out and execute?
Oh, that's tough. We're looking at you're trying to dig up video on, they have a really good hitter from Birmingham Southern that has rolled in, and they're doing the same thing with us. It's not easy. I guess the neutralizer would be there's pretty good coverage and information on college baseball in general. So you can find information. I will say, even with players that, if you look at the latest video and information in the archive from last season, these guys have worked for a long time to maybe develop another pitch or to change something about their game. So the greatest unknown in this will occur at 5 p.m. tomorrow. Our guys are different. You can go look at video of any of our guys, and they're different. Some of them have changed how they do things. Some of them are more physical. And that's the same for James Madison. They've got some really capable returners. They did inject some transfers. We both have lost a lot offensively. But, yeah, Jordan, it's never been more difficult to piece together the scouting report, because you're not just looking at, hey, these freshmen are sophomores and they grab these junior college players, so let's try to dig into them. It's coming from all over the place, and you try to piece that puzzle together. And my staff does a fantastic job, and I guarantee you tomorrow when we have our meeting with the players, these are things that we've discussed in-house, but we give this to the players the day of the games, and then we'll do the same thing Saturday and the same thing Sunday to prep them. They'll be well-versed, with the understanding that even if we are familiar with the video and the stats and what this looks like and how the changeup worked and how the slider looked, you don't have video from fall practice and preseason practice on how hard these guys have worked to continue to develop their game. So this will probably be the most unfamiliar look, even though you have some data, and the players have to understand that going into weekend number 1.
Link, who are some guys that you feel like have the traits to lead off? Some candidates that could lead off for you guys?
Yeah, that's a good one. You're trying to spread this lineup, and there's so many different ways to look at it. Gage Harrelson has shown that. Max Williams did it last year. Max is not your prototypical leadoff guy, but your leadoff hitter is going to come to the plate the most often. So there is logic in that philosophy as well. You do want the middle of the lineup, the guys that have been very consistent and maybe extra base hit type potential to get some good opportunities. So if a Gage Harrelson or a Chase Williams or a player like that, that's more of your prototypical leadoff hitter, does it put more pressure? They can run. So do you get more mistakes for the middle of the lineup when you have some guys that can find ways on base that have base stealing traits? That would be the philosophy with why you lead off somebody that unsettles the guy on the mound in the defense. You may get more mistakes. And if they're pitching to the middle of the lineup very carefully, maybe you get more pitches to actually try to run on and more balls in the dirt and that sort of thing. So I'm kind of leaning towards having Max more in the middle of the lineup and leading off one of the guys that might threaten at the top in terms of the run game and the bunt game, and then maybe let the middle of the lineup see some pitches before they get up there. As I'm sitting here right now at 11-16, that's how I feel. Now, I haven't written this puppy down yet, but we're close.
With a guy like Evan, who's started the last 2 years, and I think that's pretty much all the appearances he's made, how intriguing is the possibility of him being a reliever? What do you think that could possibly look like for him?
We need consistency with the secondary pitches, Brett. That's what you need. If you're coming into a mess, that breaking ball's got to be on point. That's really the ticket. I think he's shown flashes of it, but you are looking for secondary pitches that can punch people out and get you off the field. That's what those leverage moments are about. And, sometimes the relief appearance does not include base running activity or a mess, but you almost have to prepare for it to include that. And that's how you're grooming those guys. So Micah said it was the best session they've had in the bullpen in trying to find the right mix of how the slider works. And I think they landed on something. And we saw him in his last outing keep the ball down, and he's thrown strikes. I just think as you get into this, the punch out is the most important metric for the overall capabilities of your baseball team is, can your pitching staff strike people out? So his usage in that situation demands that there are pitches that he can use to escape and get off the field. And that's what we're looking for. I think what Mike and he found in the bullpen this week is a step in the right direction. He could also clearly start. Again, you're going to deal with some messes whether you start or relieve, and being able to navigate that and induce weak contact or some punch outs kind of get you off the field as a starter as well. So that's where he is. He works very hard. He's very intuitive to what he's trying to do. It's just, again, the execution, the consistency of the secondary pitches more than anything.
Coach, the power with Miles Bailey is obvious, but where have you seen him grow in some of the nuances of the game, both pitch recognition and defense? And can you trust him to be your everyday first baseman right now?
The growth initially was we needed him to be more aggressive, which is an interesting thing. I think he had gotten very selective. And when we walked in here, we had some conversations about being a little bit more aggressive and hunting fastballs and trying to adjust to the secondary pitches and take them at times and eliminate them at times. I do think his pitch recognition is good, especially for a young hitter. What he's about to embark on and what he's going to see. Any freshman is clearly far different than what you've seen up to this point. And you know what? The stuff we have on our staff is really good, but guess what? He's seen the same guys over and over again. So, when it's a new look and you get one or two at-bats off of different arms, you don't have a lot of time to figure it out. Like, it's on the fly in mid-pitch adjustments and seeing what those guys see and what they're thinking and what do I think they see as they make the adjustments. It's the most difficult part of coaching the hitters. It's what does this look like to them and what are they thinking and what does that changeup look like, or what does a left-handed breaking ball look like? I think there has been progress. He's got to continue to fight to put balls in play and two-strike hit. Half of our at-bats, we talk about it all the time. It doesn't matter how you do the math. It seems like half the at-bats turn out to be some sort of two-strike at-bat. So he's got to continue to push that strikeout rate down. Some of that is early count flattening out the swing a little bit and making sure early count, good hittable pitches are hit. We know if he does that, some of those things are going to go a long way. But it's the management of, the change in pace and the in out of the fastball and the up fastball. It's complicated. I have seen flashes of knowing that he can do it. He's very athletic at first. He played third and played the outfield. He could run him around anywhere, but he has been athletic at first base. I think when you make that maneuver, staying low around the bag and starting down low in your legs and working up through things is the teaching trait that I've seen a lot in first basemen that A, are young, B, haven't played it. And in this case, it's A and B. So we're trying to get him to stay down in those legs. And he's a big kid. When you're 6'4", 6'5", you're obviously not starting real low. So we have to force him to get down in those legs and work up through it. But he's been a workaholic. If anything, I've had to tell him, hey, let's be sure like we're not, overdoing it in the nighttime hitting sessions down there. Just kind of conserve and make sure you're thinking through everything you do.